Hi friends from around the world. So it is copyright time. This is the symbol of the copyright. So C within a circle, right? Copyright is one of the most complex intellectual property, I would say. It is so widespread, it is nearly everywhere. And if you are an artist, if you are an author of a creative work, like it could be a building, you could be an architect, like it could be a songwriter, like it could be a movie actor, it could be a painter, it could be a sculpturist, you could be a designer, for example. Again, you could be in the gaming industry, so the industry of internet games and software games. You could be a software engineer. All of this has to do with copyright. So it is very vast. It is something which should be interested. Everybody should be interested in it. Now, that is what is copyright. Copyright is the right to copy, right? So it is very old. Here you have a burlesque from the 16th, it is a burlesque referring to the 16th century, where copyright already existed, and for the international protection, where you could, in one country copy an artwork and sell it in another country without any infringement being in the middle. So international protection, I will come a bit later in this video to it, but this is very old. Now, it protects the creativity of human mind, right? So something which is new, is a creative, is a kind of artwork that would be subject to copyright protecting. The idea itself, the idea which is behind, is not protected. It is only the expression of that idea, the materializing of that idea into something either which is palpable or in the digital world existing, so seeable, which you can recognize, which you can see on the screen. That could be protected, right? So in every dimension, so it could be 3D, it could be 2D, it could be whatever it is, but it is a photograph. If you're a photographer, for example, a photograph is protectable under, or in the broadcasting industry, that could be as well something which is protected under copyright. So you get me, it is very broad, right? A good news here is that the copyright is being created, so protection begins as from the creation of the work. And that's it. So unlike the trademarks and the designs, well, there are hundreds of the designs, so the trademarks, there is no formality, and that is practically all over the world. There are some countries where you can register, but it is through the Berne Convention where nearly the whole world, at least China, Europe, US, they are all covered under the Berne Convention, and the Berne Convention gives minimum standards, and no formality is required in order to get copyright protection. So it is quite clear the whole world has more or less has the same minimum standard, but then there are different requirements. Also in Europe, we don't have a national title. We don't have a European title. We have a national title, meaning that unlike trademarks, where you have one title, one copyright, which is protected in the whole European Union, what you have is individual. What you acquire is, if you are in, I don't know, in Germany, you would get a German copyright title, so to say, a copyright in which you can enforce. So you have national titles, and that is for the whole world. You have national titles. Copyright, in fact, is protected like any other IP right according to the territory and according to the jurisdiction where you live in. So in Europe we have 27 member states and we have 27 jurisdictions, so to say, and 27 copyrights according to where you live. Now you might be interested what happens with the international protection, and that is one issue which comes to my heart. So you have a kind of international protection, and that goes also without any formality, and that is through the Berne Convention. In fact, there are multiple international treaties which have been adopted over time. There is the Marrakesh Treaty, the Rome Treaty, the Berne Convention, and the Beijing Treaty, etc. So there are some of them which refer to copyright, to certain aspects of the copyright, and they are widely adopted. Not all of them. The Beijing Treaty, for example, is not even in force, although it has been already for some time signed. Now, the Berne Convention is in force since more than 100 years. And the Berne Convention is, a mutually agreement of a copyright. So if a copyright in Germany, which is a member state, and in China it is recognized as a German copyright, and it can be enforced in China. Yes, can be enforced in China. So you have a certain protection. Now, do you want to enforce your copyright of a photography in China? That's another issue. What you can do, and what you should do, is to signal that you have a copyright, as it is not a formal adoption. Sorry. It is not a formal filing, a registry where it can be looked up whether you have a copyright protected work or not. You can indicate that you have that copyright protected work with this C in a circle, which I showed you in the beginning, right? So that would be a possibility, at least, to advise the good actors on the market which want to exploit that work and thinking it is not copyright protected, and they exploit that work. But once you give him a cease and desist letter, which is easy, it's a template practically. You have to identify them though. So if you do this, they would stop probably acting. Now the bad actors, they are more difficult to come by. And you have to go to court. So if you have to go to court, you could not go to court in Germany unless the infraction was in Germany. If it was in China, you have to go to court in China. So which is more difficult, or in the US or wherever it is, or in Sweden, where the infraction took place. So that becomes a bit more burdensome and difficult. Just to get the concept, I don't want to get too much into the details. Now, this is about the copyright in general. You have the copyright and you have neighboring rights, which makes it more complex, which are other actors. So I will talk today only about the copyright and the authors of the original work, which are protected. So copyright is the protection of the authors of an original work. So the expression of the idea, of the concept, right? Okay, so let's talk about the possibilities you have, the rights which confer the copyright. And these are quite extensive. Here on the screen you have them. It's about distributing, reproducing, translating. It is about performance. It is about, a lot of things which are protected. These are economic rights. All of them are called economic rights. And you have the moral right. So this is quite typical to copyright, moral rights. You have moral rights, meaning that if if you have a license, for example, a license is you have royalties, you give somebody the possibility to distribute your work, to exploit your work in whatever way, on a performance or whatever. And then your work is mutilated in a way that it is not improving your work, but it is, a kind of a danger for your reputation, for your good reputation of as the author of the work. So then you would have moral rights, a damage claim against this licensee, in order to stop first, to do that mutilating, and perhaps to get some damage out of it. So you have economic rights and you have moral rights. The issue with moral rights is it remains always with the author. So even if you sell your original work or you license it out, whatever, the economic right of the moral right remains with you as the author, right? So this is about the rights which are conferred. How long is it? That is good news. It is 70 years. So in general, 70 years. So what I say here is in general applicable to the whole world. So there are still jurisdictions, and copyright is determined by your jurisdiction. You have to look into your jurisdiction in order to get a clear picture on the copyright. But what I tell you here is in what would be, so to say, the Berne Convention, and which are minimum standards around the world. And afterwards, you have to look into details within your jurisdiction. Now, 70 years after death of the author. So that is quite a lot of time, right? So it becomes to your heir. So the heir will be will be the owner of the copyright 70 years after your death. So that is the protection time. No formality. So in some jurisdiction you can register your copyright, but still you have no formality to do so. So that is a good thing. What else? Exceptions and limitation. That is also very specific to copyright. You talk always about limitations and exceptions. So the exceptions that you have to look up into your jurisdictions. What are the kind of exceptions, and what is the exact scope of the limitations and exceptions you have? But in general, and I talk here in general you have teaching, educational use of your work. That would be an exception, allowable without license, etc. Or you would see in research facilities, or in universities for research purposes. That would be also an exception, or a quote of your work. If it is a literary work, for example, you're a book author, you make a literary work, or tweet. If even a tweet can be protected by copyright. So if you do this quote in the news, for example, a news feed, then you quote from somebody that is not. It is covered by the exceptions and limitations. So there are some of these exceptions, limitations where it is possible. In other ways it is not. So this is the catch of the copyright. So let me wrap this up for you. Copyright is widespread. It is all over. It can be your last plan B. So if you don't have a design, for example, you can still look at copyright or even anti-unfair competition law in your jurisdiction. But this would be a last straw. That would be a possibility to look at, because there is no filing, so that you don't need to have filed, you don't need to have taken action for protection previously, but you get it upon creation of your artistic work, whatever kind of expression you have chosen, whether it is word, sound, or multimedia, 3D, or whatever. It is long-lasting. Your heirs will inherit the copyright, so it is part of your inheritage, if you want, and it can be precisely useful. You have some kind of international protection, at least for the good players. It is easy to enforce, so to say, with a cease and desist letter. And it has a very much implication, I would say, for the third world, for all of you out there in South America, Africa, or Southeast Asia, or wherever you are. Also in Europe, right? But where you are, where the economy probably is not so much advanced as it is in, in Europe or in the US, there is creativity. Creativity is music. So you make some music in Africa which has local colorit, so to say, that is protected by copyright. And you can sell. Why not? You can sell it, you can license it out, and you can avoid that somebody in the US is copying it if your country is a part of the Berne Convention. So that is one thing you should probably look out as a first step. Thank you for being here today.